Hello! In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a calendar routine that can be done with kindergartners and first graders throughout the summer so that they can have some reinforcement of math concepts even when the teacher is no longer the one assigning them. So the calendar routine includes reading a calendar to figure out the day of the week, writing the date, using popsicle sticks to understand place value, expanded notation, tens and ones pieces, and tally marks. And then at the end of the video, I'll talk about a couple other activities that you might want to add on if your child has the stamina for it. In the description of this video, I'm going to include a link to a Google Drive folder which is going to include the documents that I use, such as the calendar itself and the place value chart and the other place value chart. So check that out in the description, and also, as always, the description has a breakdown of the video, so if afterwards you want to reference a specific part, just click on the time and it'll jump right to it. So you start out with the calendar itself, telling your student the day's date. So if it were June 12th, I would say to my student, today is June 12th in the year 2020. June is the month, 2020 is the year. Find June 12th on the calendar. And then they'd find it and they'd trace it. Then you'd ask your student, what day of the week is June 12th? And if you didn't notice, this is color coded, so all the Sundays are red, all the Mondays are orange, all the Tuesdays are yellow, all the Wednesdays are green, all the Thursdays are blue, all the Fridays are purple, and all the Saturdays are magenta. So your student could use the color coding to help them figure it out if they don't already know to go straight up. So the answer is Friday. They could either write it down here on the line, or they could choose from some little slips of paper. They'd put it on the line and they would say, today is Friday. Then they're going to write the date down here. If your student doesn't know the numeric months, then that's something that can be either addressed separately, or you can just tell them that June is the 6th month. Hopefully by the 12th, they already remember that. But you'd say June is the 6th month. So they'd write a 6 here. Then they'd write 12 because that's the day. Then you could ask them the year. And if they don't remember, then you could say it's at the top of the calendar. And they'd write 2020. Then we want them to practice saying the whole thing. Today is Friday, June 12th, 2020. Next, they move on to place value, using the day's date as the number they focus on. On June 12th, your student would put 12 popsicle sticks onto this place value chart, starting in the ones. They'd count up, and notice that I am covering these dots. There are 9 of them, so the student has a clue that once all the dots are covered, then they cannot put any more popsicle sticks. They cannot put more than 9 in the ones place. So once it fills up, if they still have to keep going, they grab all 9, add the 10th one, and then bundle it up in a rubber band. Then they keep going until they reach the number that they're trying to get to. So today is the 12th, we need 2 more. From here, they'd move on to the other place value chart, which is right here, and they'd input their number data down to here. So in the hundreds place, we don't even have a hundreds place, so that's 0. We have 0 sets of 100 popsicle sticks. In the tens place, look up here, there is one bunch of 10. So they have 1 set in the tens place. And then in the ones place, they have 2 popsicle sticks, so they would write 2 over here. Then you move down to the bottom of the page where it says expanded notation, and you're going to write, or your student's going to write the corresponding numbers onto these blanks. So on the longest line, which is purple to match the heading, we have 0, because there are no hundreds. On the medium-sized line, which is orange to match the tens, we have 10. And then on the shortest line, which is green to match the ones, we have 2. Add them together, 0 plus 10 plus 2 is 12. And your student may need to break down a little bit more. Even though we have a 0 here, it might be better to say, what is 0 plus 10? And then, what is 10 plus 2? Instead of having it all together in one number sentence. If you want more detail on how to do these charts, I did do a separate video that goes way more in depth, so I'm going to link that in the description of this video. But now I'm going to move on to the tens and ones pieces. To figure out how many tens and ones pieces they need, your student could just refer to the number in question. They could look at the expanded notation, they could look at this chart, or they could look at their popsicle stick chart to figure it out. So for 12, we have a bunch of 10, one single bunch of 10, so I'm going to need one single tens piece. And then in the ones place, I have 2 popsicle sticks, so I need 2 ones pieces. Then to check their work, you could, if you wanted to, have them take the tens piece and put it on a hundreds chart, then add ones pieces on there and see if they land on the number that they were trying to get to. So this week we're trying to get to 12 with my tens piece and my ones pieces. I get to 12, so I know I did it right. The last thing in the routine is to practice some tally marks. So you could just do it on the bottom of this calendar page and have your student make tallies until they get to the number they need. So for the 12th, they would just draw 12 tally marks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shut the gate on 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Shut the gate. 11, 12. And this gives a really convenient opportunity to practice counting by 5. So once they have all these tally marks written down, then they can practice 5, 10, 11, 12. The last extension activity that I'm going to talk about is using coins to make the focus number for the day. You do not have to use this chart to do it, but I think it's a good starting point because it tells you, it gives you or your student a clue as to which coins they'll need to use. For example, in the tens place, we use the coin that is worth 10 cents. So if you have, so on the 12th, since you have a 1 in the tens place, you would need one coin that's worth 10 or a dime. And then in the ones place, we use the coins that are worth 1 cent. Pennies are worth 1 cent. You have a 2 here, so you need 2 pennies. If you want to create some more combinations, then you could switch to another piece of paper, split into columns, put one combination up here, do the next combination on the next line, etc. And I'm going to do a separate video that goes more in detail about how to present this to your child. If your child has the stamina for it, you could do an extension to the calendar by asking them about yesterday and tomorrow. So if they already did this part, they have it filled out, you could ask them a question starting by reminding them of today's date. So you could say, today is the 12th. What day was it yesterday? And they might not know that yesterday goes in this direction, and they might not know that tomorrow goes in this direction and how it wraps around. So this is going to be a challenge for some kids. If they do know which way yesterday goes, then it'll be pretty easy for them. If they don't, then this little thing could be helpful. All I did was trace I traced this shape, and then I covered it in packaging tape, and then I cut it out, which is actually a pretty big pain, but now I have this cool little tool. So I put the center on today's date, and then I can ask the same question, and the student knows that there are only 4 choices. And hopefully eventually they realize that yesterday is always going to be in this box. Tomorrow is always going to be in this box. If you're asking about days of the week, you could say, what day of the week was it yesterday? What day of the week will it be tomorrow? You could also ask, what was the date last Friday? Or what will the date be next Friday? And I would encourage my student to not just point or say the number, but to say the full sentence so that it reinforces the concept. So instead of just saying 11, my student would say, yesterday was the 11th. Or if you want to get really fancy, they could say, yesterday was Thursday, June 11th, 2020. And then for last Friday, it was June 5th. I got the idea for this frame from a hundreds chart activity called Number Neighbors, where it's basically the same exact thing, except this goes on a 100 chart instead of a calendar. So because a week only has 7 days, and on a hundreds chart there are 10 days in a row, it would be very confusing to introduce both this version and this version at the same time, because as you can see, while the horizontal numbers match up, the tops and bottoms do not. So if you are going to do both activities, both the framing on the calendar and the framing on the 100 chart, I highly recommend not starting them at the same time and not introducing the second one until the first one is mastered. So if my student has never done this 100 chart activity, finding 1 less, 1 more, 10 more, 10 less, then I would say this is more important than this one. I would say that this is more important because we count by 10s far more than we count by 7s. If your child already knows how to do this and they've seen it before, they've done it in their worksheets, they can do it really well, then adding this on probably will not be a problem. If you do want to introduce them at the same time, then what you could do is just make this like cut off the top, cut off the bottom, so it would only be horizontal. And you'd just have yesterday and tomorrow, and you wouldn't even worry about last week or next week. So again, even though I demonstrated this first, this activity here is the one I recommend introducing first if your child doesn't know how to do it already. So if your child does not know how to do this, hold off on the framing of the calendar and focus on this first. And again, that's because it's going to be more useful and relevant to them. So you have it here, and all you're going to do is ask 4 simple questions. Don't even bother having them write it down, just do it orally. You would ask them, what number comes before 12? Or what's 1 less than 12? What is 1 more than 12? What number is 10 more than 12? And what number is 10 less than 12? You could also frame it a different way. You could ask, how many more than 12 is 22? Or how many less than 12 is 2? If this is easy for your child, just orally telling you which number is more and less, then a progression to it would be to just draw that shape and fill it in with them. And you could have them fill it out, or you could do it yourself, because the point of calendar isn't for the child to be producing work, it's for them to be practicing. So if they practice by saying it orally and you write it down, that's fine. If they're trying this for the first time and they're not really used to it, then it will be helpful to keep the frame on here and ask them the questions like, what number are we focusing on? 12. What number is 1 more than 12? 13. What number is 1 less than 12? What number is 10 less than 12? What number is 10 more than 12? If they can do it with the frame here, once that starts to be pretty automatic for them, like they totally understand which numbers correspond to which box and how to fill in this chart, then the next time you do it, you could do it without the frame. Still have them fill it out, or have them tell you what to fill.